everyone, and welcome to Envision Together, going to our next level of best. I am so pleased to welcome Jiva and Salojana Sam to our show today. They are going to tell us a little bit about arranged marriages, and I am so interested to know more. It's a topic that I've always been very interested in. I think there's a lot of wisdom actually in having arranged marriages, as I have a daughter and I would like nothing better than to be able to choose her husband. Of course, I do think I don't know. There's room for people to make their own choices too. But as a parent, I gotta admit that I have an itch to want to get involved. But, with that, I digress just a little bit. We would like to have these two go ahead and introduce themselves in their own way. So welcome. So glad to be able to talk to you.
Well, thank you very much for having us on this podcast, Pamela. So I'm Jiva, and I was born and raised in India many moons ago. And then our
You look
family
very
moved.
young, so I don't know.
Thank you. I'm actually 66 years young.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so my father actually moved to Canada first in 1975, and in 1976, the rest of our family came, me and my siblings and my mom. And so I went to university here, went to seminary. I was ordained. I'm actually a third generation pastor and served for over 35 years in a mainline Canadian denomination, and then retired from active congregational ministry in 2017.
Yeah. So my name is Salojana, like you mentioned. You said it so well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And I was born and brought up in Malaysia. I was there till I was 15, and being a Muslim country, there weren't that many churches. This is also many years ago. And so we had to take the bus and go to church. So my dad, didn't force us. Whenever we could, we'll go. And then afterwards, we'll go eat and go to a movie. So that's how we did it. And anyways, I still had the basic foundation of being a Christian. That's about it. And when I was 15, my dad retired and we all moved to India. That's where I went to university and met my best friend who, led me to Christ and got saved. And from there on, it just one thing after another, I became a strong Christian. And after I finished university in 83, Jiva came back to India to get married. We got married, and I came to Canada in 84, February of 84. So it's about 40 years,
Wow.
40 years now. Yeah.
And together we have 3 children, all of whom are married. And we also have an adorable grandson who is just over 6 months old.
6
And
months.
so we're very blessed. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you for telling us so much about you. It helps to understand who it is you're listening to as they share their different ideas, to have some foundation of who's talking to you. So thanks for sharing so candidly and generously. But let's jump right in. So in today's world, many people are choosing not to get married at all, or to get married later in life, to have children, to not have children. What do you say about these things? What do you think is contributing to that?
Well, there's been a shift because when I was ordained in 82, there were a lot of weddings that I did for like 20-year-old guys marrying 18 and 19-year-old girls. So the marriage age was actually very low. And then, over the past few decades, of course, it's gone up considerably. And so today it's not very uncommon to see couples in their late 30s getting married and then hurrying up and having a child before the biological clock runs out on the wife. And so I think a number of factors contribute to it. One of them is is really what's happening in society as a whole, because the rate of divorce is so high, sadly, within the church as well as outside the church.
Yeah.
And so there's this reluctance, there's some insecurity.
Yeah.
And what that also means is many of the young adults today were brought up in a home where they experienced divorce. And so they are children of divorce. And so they are very, very, reluctant
Yeah.
to put themselves in a place, because, their parents got married with the best of intentions. Nobody ever gets married saying, yeah, one day we'll get divorced and then we'll be fine.
Yeah.
No,
True.
yeah. And so, so that fear and the insecurity, holds people back. And I think there's also a greater emphasis on your careers these days, and maybe even more pressure. That if you're just getting established in a career, starting out in a career, like in our day, when you get started in a career, first thing you did, you went and took a loan and got a car, and next thing you got married. And so the beginning of a career also had all these other milestones with it. But today is more of a prevailing philosophy that it's better to get established and then get married. So I won't even date until I get really good at my job, like that kind of stuff. I've even heard that kind of attitude from people investing in relationships. Of course, is hard work. And so,
Yeah, I was also going to say, people living common law, you see lots of them. Common law, then there's no commitment, because maybe they are seeing so much divorce. This, it doesn't work out, then, I can just leave, so they've got this back door open, so.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people decide to do. Just take common law, see if it works out first, and then So I know there is a shift, and I don't know if it's good or bad. I think the no commitment part is I don't know if it's really good, but anyway, because of our faith, we. It's better to have that commitment than you work that much harder to make it work.
And the irony is that many couples choose to cohabit first because they think, well, at least we'll get to know each other, we'll know what life's going to be like, and we'll have no problems. The statistics prove the exact opposite. The statistics actually say, consistently for the last 20 years that I'm aware of, that couples who cohabit before marriage have a higher rate of divorce than those who don't. And so, which is very interesting. And so again, what makes a marriage work, is not about really getting to know each other before in terms of like cohabiting and so on. That doesn't necessarily give you an edge, because there are many other factors that will contribute to a long and successful marriage.
Right. Yeah, I think you together nailed it, covered it with a lot of the ways that I think people are making choices too. But I couldn't help but think of, as we talk about people putting off marriage and family for careers, I just wonder, where are we going as a society that we need so much more and so much more stuff? When is enough? When do we reach enough? When does the bar or the goalpost stop moving? Because it seems like it's always moving. You got to have more and more and more before you feel okay or before you feel stable. And what is that doing to our overall health in so many ways? Health of relationships, health, just physical health, mental well-being, emotional well-being. I agree with what you all said, but it caused me to think about those things. Are we getting it wrong, or are we getting it right by wanting so much more? Is it really necessary to have so much more? Now, I do believe that God wants us to be in a good financial position. For one, I don't know, we have a heart to give. We want to help others. How can we help others if we don't have something to help others with? But at the same time, just living your life grinding and not enjoying family and enjoying rich relationships. I think to some extent we might be getting it wrong.
Mhm.
But that's what I was thinking about as I was listening to you. But thank you for your response. So, what can we in the West learn from the success of arranged marriages, and how exactly do these arrangements? How are they made from A to Z? Because although I've always heard about them, I don't think I've ever heard anybody tell me in detail how it works. So I'm sure my listeners might want to know more too.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the fundamental difference between marriages as we know them in the West and in cultures like the Indian culture is that here we think of marriage as two individuals coming together. And that's why, we go looking, we date, we court, whatever the terminology we use, and then we make the choice to marry another person. In the Indian culture and other similar, ancient cultures, marriage is actually two families coming together. And so the families then play a very significant role in who you marry. And part of the reason is because families have a perspective that we, especially as young people, with hormones going haywire, don't always have, because we make our choices, based on, like good looks and whatever other facts attract us to each other, position, finances, all that kind of stuff. Whereas
Emotions.
a lot of emotions are
Yeah.
involved. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. So even the whole expression of falling in love, which today has been proven to be a chemical reaction in the brain. All these fancy chemicals coming together and give you that high. And so, which again, falling in love also means that you can fall out of love. Whereas in the arranged marriage cultures, it is the parents basically saying, in what ways do these two make a good match? And quite often, I think in the early days, it was families that just said, like for example, my father's friend would say to him, "Hey, I think your son would be a good match for my daughter. What do you think? Let's arrange their marriage." But over time, as the population grew and people became more mobile and spread out, then that created room for marriage brokers to come into the picture. And so when the time that we got married, my father, we're in Canada already, and so my father contacted a friend in India and was a marriage broker and said, "Hey, we're coming this summer, and if possible, like to arrange a marriage for our son. And so, here are some of the qualities, characteristics that we're looking for in a prospective daughter-in-law." Okay.
Wow.
So unbeknownst to me, around the same time,
Yeah, my dad did the same thing, somehow he got connected with the same marriage broker. He had a few, I think. So he was one of them. So they usually make a list of what the family is looking for. Like my dad was very strict, and it's like no drinking, no smoking, has to be a Christian, because there were lots of Hindus. And the education, they match up the education. And then they talk about the dowry, money is involved. It can be jewelry or properties. So when they don't just talk to one person, so they'll bring a few matches, and then the parents will decide, okay, maybe that one seems like a better match. The family background, they look at the family background, and my dad did lots of checking too, just like when
no, this was before the internet. You could not just order
No,
internet
exactly.
search.
Yeah, so 40 years ago in India.
Wow.
So he talked to some of, the relatives, teachers,
It's word of mouth
word
kind
of
of
mouth.
connections.
And
Yeah. So,
they're basically checking out the character and the personality, family background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in this case, this broker, had on the one part of his list, there was me, the other part of his list that was Slojana. And so, so when he mentioned to both of our families that we could be a good match for each other, then once the families concurred, then at that point things begin to move forward. So now both of us have to give our yeses, before it could go ahead. And
Yeah, in some families, even that doesn't happen. Just the parents make a decision and tell the children.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the children trust their parents'
Mhm.
decision so much that, like, we've heard of many people meeting their life partner on their wedding day. That's the first time they actually get to see them in person. They may have seen a picture earlier.
let me ask you this. Had you dated prior to the arranged marriage process with the broker?
No. We've heard of dating, but no, it wasn't a trend there, or it wasn't in our culture.
It was considered taboo, really.
Yeah, it was. It was taboo.
So we'll just give you a little bit of a history to tell you how serious this is. Normally, when a match is made, then the boy's family would go, with the boy to the girl's family, and they have an opportunity to see the girl in person, and for her to see the guy in person, and that'd be it. There'll be no contact between them, no conversation. It'll be just like, oh, okay, the picture wasn't lying, and okay, and so it'll be okay, and then. So what I did was I told my parents, you know what, I'm not going to settle just for like a lookaloo here. Like, I need to have a conversation with her, and so I need to, and her father was adamantly opposed to it, because he was like, we've already chosen you for each other. What more do you need to talk about? So finally, this almost seemed like a deal breaker. So
let me pause for just a moment. Did you ever meet the other options, the other ladies that the broker found?
No. In our case, this was the only match that the broker brought to us.
Okay.
Yeah, the friends.
Well, friends were trying to make some connections and stuff, but really, this was the only serious option, that we really pursued.
Yeah, I had a few,
Okay.
Well,
your dad basically vetoed every one of them, and so
he didn't like any of them.
So Sologjana, you met other people, but okay.
They come, they see you, not much of a conversation. They get to see you. Some of them come to church and then see you, at church.
Okay.
Before they make a decision.
So we had to do some, hard negotiations with her dad to give us a chance to actually beat it as well. And part of it is like, you put a girl and a guy in a room by themselves without parental supervision, like that is considered a no-no, or was in those days in our society.
Okay.
And so that's why he was very reluctant that if we were allowed to stay in that room together, even though everybody knows it's a conversation that we're having and nothing else happening, and I said no to her, then that could be a stain on her. So that's how much he valued it. So his motives were very noble and honorable. But I just felt like, we need to have a talk.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so he relented. And so we jokingly say that we had a very long courtship by Indian standards. It was 15 minutes.
That's funny. So when you did finally see each other and you were alone, the two of you, Jiva, what were your thoughts when you first laid eyes on her?
Well, I thought, of course, she's pretty, and she spoke fluent English when I asked her any questions, which was, to me, that was important, because when she came to Canada, then she needed to be fluent in English. And so my main objective in that time together was really to make her aware of life in Canada. Because in India, when you're growing up in the middle-class family, upper middle class, you often have a lot of domestic help, like taking care of your household chores. And so, of course, in North America, that's a luxury, that's only available to the ultra wealthy.
Yeah.
And so I let her know that, like, when you come to Canada, then you and I, we are the domestic help. We do all the cooking, we do all the cleaning.
So Lajana, what did when you process that information, what was going through your head?
Yeah, I growing up, our dad told us, you need to learn everything, learn how to cook, clean. We did lots of things at home.
I'm not sure about the cooking part.
Yeah, there's another story behind that. That was one of the questions he asked me, during that 15-minute interview. Do you know how to cook? And I didn't tell. Yeah, I knew how to boil an egg, so I told.
That's cooking.
So when I came to Canada, I had this thick book, with all the recipes. So
some of which she had tried
tried.
She was waiting to get her visa.
Yeah.
Oh, so you tried. You said, "Let me hurry up and try this before I'm in the situation."
I knew I'll have a few months. So
what did you think? What did you think of Jiva when you first laid eyes on him?
Yeah, he was handsome, and the one thing I really remember was he was funny. He was humorous. So yeah, that really I liked that. He was joking, and he was being honest about Canada, telling me, he gave me all the information. So I thought, I liked him. So.
You know what I see about both of you that I think is just beautiful? You're obviously both very attractive people. I think I said that earlier. But you also are very, very intelligent, both of you. And it's clear to understand that. I don't have to engage with you for hours and hours to determine that. But I also am enjoying what's making this interview fun is I love the connection the two of you have with each other. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
So that's making the interview fun for me. And it's making like, so what was it like when you met him? And I wasn't expecting to ask questions like that.
After 40 years together,
yeah,
we can complete each other's sentences most of the time.
So have you told me the whole process of the
Yeah, so at that point, we had the conversation. Then it was our turn to go back home and then convey a decision to them. Now, sometimes families would decide like on the spot. They would just come back and let the broker know, hey, it's almost like a real estate transaction. Yeah, we're buying the house. We're making an offer.
Okay.
Well, I wasn't quite ready to do that at that point, so I said, let's go home because I need some time to think and pray and be totally sure that because this was next to making Jesus the Lord of my life. This was my second most important decision.
Yes.
And so. So I took a day or so, and then I felt confident in my spirit that this is who the Lord had picked out for me. And so from that moment, there's this marriage machinery that kicks into motion in India. And within a matter of 10 days, they had everything taken care of. Wow. What sometimes it takes people like 2-3 years to plan. It was done just like that. And so, almost exactly 10 days to the day that we met, we were getting married. And then part of it,
10 days. He didn't have that many holidays.
Yeah, because I had to leave, head back to Canada by the end of the month.
3 weeks.
Yeah. So but even then, like that is not a rush in India. That people do that all the time.
In those days, yeah. See, the whole community, the neighbors even come and help. They'll say, "Oh yeah, I can find a cook. I'll bring the decorations," Wow. So everybody helps, and it was done. Like within a few days, the place was ready. And
I have never heard anyone talk about a broker. Like the minute you said a broker, my mind has been like just a broker. I thought it was just okay. It's this parent and this other parent, and they've known each other for years, and they're like. Kind of like you said, it probably happened years ago the first time. I think your son
Yeah.
would be a great match for my daughter.
Yeah. And if we had both, like if our family had been living in India, things might have worked differently. Because through personal connections, this process would have been very different. But because we're already in Canada and Slogan was in India, then that was the best way to go about doing it. It's very interesting that today we still have, these, human brokers, but there's a lot of matrimonial sites online, in India,
Yeah.
where sometimes, couples will meet each other. But one of the interesting things I found this out like actually accidentally. I was talking to a cousin of mine in India that I hadn't talked to for a while, a few years ago. And so I said, "Hey, how are your children doing? Anyone getting close to marriage?" Well, she said, "I've been spending so much time on these matrimonial sites trying to find matches for them." But so far nothing has worked out. So as a parent, she was still involved in finding somebody for her daughter in that case.
Wow.
But the daughter was too busy with her career and everything else to find somebody. So she told her mom, "Your job, go send me some possible matches. Then I'll vet them, I'll check them out."
Now, did
So the
you
parents are still involved.
specifically want someone from India, or there were no people in Canada? How did that work?
Well, it's not that they were not people in Canada, but like when I came from India, I was 18 years old. And so really the Indian culture, like I was in the Indian culture, steeped in the Indian culture still. So even though I experienced life in Canada for 7 years and was familiar with dating and everything else, it still felt right in my spirit, to basically go home and get married the traditional way. Yeah, yeah. So it didn't seem very strange to me, although I blew the minds of many of my friends here in Canada. You went home and you got what? Yes, I got married.
Wow. Wow. So, why are there no such thing as marriage problems? I know that you say this. Can you enlighten us further as to why you make that statement?
Mhm. Well, the more complete version of that statement is like this. You have no marriage problems. You are two individuals with your own problems coupled together in a marriage. And together, you will give birth to marriage problems. In other words, that's our specialty. Our specialty these days is to work with couples who are at the point of giving up on their marriage and get them, a breakthrough, quite often in 10 weeks' time. And we also guarantee results. And so one of the things that the Lord showed us, at the very outset is that if you focus on just finding solutions to problems, you will have success, but only for a limited time, because the solutions still have not addressed the problems that people have on the inside. In other words, the baggage, if you will, that you bring into a marriage, and like what could be some of the baggage that people can bring?
Yeah, lots of hurts, unhealed wounds from the past. It can go back even to childhood.
Yeah.
Childhood trauma,
Yeah.
abuse. So many things. So if you're not healed from those things, and the forgiveness is a big part, then you're going to see your spouse through those lenses. And that's why you're coupled together, two individuals bringing your own problems. We do a lot of that inner healing during our mentorship process. That's when the couples get the breakthrough.
Yeah, because like one of the things that we're often shocked to hear is how much couples hurt each other, in the course of a marriage, even though, they fell in love, they were like totally convinced that they were marrying the person that they could spend the rest of their life with. And yet, quite sometimes very soon after being married, or sometimes maybe a few years down the road, all of a sudden we hear these like unspeakable stuff that people do to each other. And it's like, how can two people who were in love now hurt each other so much?
Yeah.
And the answer really is that they are hurting themselves.
That's right.
So there's a saying in the counseling world that hurt people hurt people.
Mhm.
And so until those hurts are healed, and now when you relate to each other as two people who have received at least a measure of healing, then you look at each other, you treat each other very differently than, when you're hurting yourself, because out of your hurt, you will hurt someone sometimes not even aware that you're hurting them.
Yeah.
Or even when you're aware that you're hurting them, it doesn't bother you because you're hurting so much on the inside
Right.
that it's like, yeah, so what if I'm hurting the other person?
Right.
Sometimes you'll feel good, that you're hurting the other person.
Right. So your 10-day guarantee is really, you start them on the path of discovering what you just shared. And because they've begun their own personal inner healing, it will begin to have a positive effect on healing the marriage.
Absolutely, yeah. Because like for example, let's say somebody has a problem with communication.
Mhm.
So they're not talking to each other. They're always fighting with each other. You can go and find books. You can attend seminars. You can get good patterns that will end up helping you to communicate and resolve issues. But when you are not healed on the inside, you're still hurting. As you apply them, first of all, the will to apply them will not always be there.
Yeah.
Because there's hurt that is still holding you back.
Mhm.
But even if you do apply them, at some stage, something will trigger you
Mm.
that from the past that is still has not been resolved.
Mhm.
And so at that point, it sabotages the process. And so this couple who came so happy that they're finally able to solve problems, all of a sudden realize that they cannot do it anymore. And it's simply because they have not addressed the problems that are deep within beneath the surface. So
Mhm.
you cannot change the fruit without changing the roots.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
So this is one of the major things, with our mentorship, but there are other things too that we teach the couples, like shifting the spiritual atmosphere in your home, because it's, most of them that come to us, there's so much strife, so much unhappiness. So yeah, that, yeah.
And,
So that
and toxicity.
How do you help them shift the atmosphere?
So the simplest way to shift a spiritual atmosphere is by developing some habits that either overpower the toxins, or remove them, intentionally. So we'll just give you a few of them. The number one atmosphere shifter that we have actually found is to actually spend time in stillness, in the presence of God.
Mhm.
And the discipline that we teach is called soaking. So soaking is where you are still with some very quiet instrumental music playing in the background to keep distractions away.
Mhm.
And you allow the peace of God to basically fill you.
Mhm.
And so when you're operating from a place of strife, you will find it very difficult to apply even the most effective techniques and strategies and advice in the world that will actually get your marriage back on track. So that what happens is, so essentially, to put it in Christian terms, the presence of the Holy Spirit now comes and overpowers the toxins. So the toxins cannot survive when the presence of the Holy Spirit is strong.
Mhm.
Another one that we teach, is gratitude, right?
Gratitude, yeah. That's one of the things. What are you thankful for? It can be something general. That's one of the things. The next one is, what are you thankful for for your spouse? Lots of times, when they are coming to us, that's because there's so much strife, they don't see anything good in their spouse. So we tell them to go back to your dating days. What did you see? Yeah, sometimes it's good. It jogs your memory, and they'll start seeing the good in their spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that also shifts the atmosphere because, again, the Bible says you enter into God's, gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. And so as soon as you get into Thanksgiving mode, you're into God's presence again. And so that again, will take care of the toxicity and add, more of God and his spirit in there. And that shifts the atmosphere better than anything else.
Yeah. And then getting into the word. Yeah.
Yeah, getting in the word, speaking the word out loud. While you were sharing, I was thinking about things that I do, not necessarily to heal a marriage relationship. I'm single, but just from time to time, I just want my atmosphere saturated
Mm.
with goodness and God. And so I'll say scriptures out loud in my home,
Mhm.
almost like
Yeah.
releasing it into my home,
Yes.
or the fruit of the spirit. I'll just
Yeah.
call them out.
Mhm.
Um, and then if I did have an experience where maybe an argument or a disagreement happened in my home, I'm like telling, like, I don't know, disagreement or whatever to leave my home.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
um, and I
That's
believe that we set the tone for our environment.
Yes.
Amen.
And it's funny because sometimes even non-Christian people will enter my home and they will comment on it's so peaceful.
Mm.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. We've got the same experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And then likewise, sometimes you can have someone visit your home and notice that it feels less peaceful. Like someone can come in, even just someone to repair something.
Mm.
And it reminds me to, okay, I need to bring my home back to a more peaceful
Right.
status, so to speak. But I know some people listen to us and might think, oh, that's kind of weird or whatever. But it's no different than the idea of when you say something positive to someone, it has a positive effect. If you tell
Mm.
someone, oh, you're so pretty, or I like your smile, or I love your dress, it gives a feeling to that person. It changes their
Mhm.
atmosphere, so to speak.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
like if you were to say, oh, you're so ugly or you're not smart, it creates a down
Yeah.
feeling or atmosphere in that person. It's the same kind of like in your home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Our words are very powerful.
Mhm.
So it's the same kind of concept.
Mhm.
And I just said that, for the sake of people that may not be able to relate so much with what we're saying. I know that you two get it, but just to help other people understand.
Yeah.
Now we are coming. I wish we could keep talking for much longer, but we're coming to the close of our hour. And there is another question I'd like to ask you, a couple of questions actually. Some I think you've covered, but if you think with this one you've covered it, just let me know or expound. So please explain the spirit soul body connection that underlines your marriage mentor process.
Okay. So this is basically working with the way that God designed us.
Mm-hmm.
So we are spirit beings with a soul in a body.
Yeah.
And our definition of soul is that it encompasses your mind, your will, and your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so, on the one hand, it's the spirit level that we connect with God, with the Holy Spirit of God. And so that's where like prayer, forgiveness, all those things come in.
Mm-hmm.
But then with the soul, the mind, will, and emotions are where a lot of the battles are fought and either won or lost.
Yes.
Because in the mind, we store the memories of everything
Yes.
that ever happened to us, anything ever said to us, both good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then the emotions, come as a result of, what is stored there, how we respond to them. So sometimes we can be very expressive with our emotions. Sometimes we can suppress our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And together, between the memories and the emotions, now the will comes into play. And now we make a decision to either move ahead, move backwards, freeze, all those kind of things.
Mm.
And so we need to take seriously, on the one hand, our relationship with God,
Yes.
but we also need to take seriously the way that He made us. What are we doing with our memories? So, for example, like we talked about, somebody was raised with some childhood trauma. Well, that you cannot erase that memory. It is always going to be there, but you can remove the power of that memory to keep on triggering you and to keep on impacting the way that you move forward.
Right.
So that's where the soul healing is very, very important. And once you take care of the spirit and the soul, the body will follow.
Mhm.
Now, what often happens is people try to fix things at the body level, the physical level. So you change your talk, you change the way you treat each other. And if the wounds are still there at the soul level, and if you haven't made it right with God,
Mhm.
then it will not last.
Yes.
Like all those will work for a certain length of time.
Mhm.
And so that's why, we emphasize that order, that we start with the spirit, and then we move into the soul realm. And then finally, we'll teach you how to communicate properly, how to resolve conflict, how to handle finances, how to make time for each other, set boundaries, all those things.
That's great.
But we cannot get there until we've dealt with things at the spirit and the soul level.
Mhm. That's great. And I believe along those same lines, quite honestly. I wondered about something while you were talking, though. What do you think about what I'm going to call generational trauma or inherited type of problems? In the Bible, we would probably call some of these iniquity. How do you think that plays out in how it makes people tick and how that might be affecting a marriage?
It is serious, and not everybody recognizes it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason is, we don't always know what happened in our previous generations.
Mm-hmm.
We may know one, two, maybe three or four in some cases, but
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, we have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you draw out the number of generations that brought you to where you are,
Mm-hmm.
by the time you go to the fourth generation, there's about 128 people involved. And so
Yeah.
you don't know how much of that, the iniquity has come down the generational line.
Mm-hmm.
And so thankfully, right in the Bible, which talks about the iniquities, being passed down, visited upon the third and fourth generations, down to the fourth generation, rather, of those who hate God. We also have examples of people who have actually stood in the gap and asked God to forgive the sins of the ancestors.
Yes.
And so, we didn't commit them, so we cannot receive forgiveness for them.
Mm-hmm.
But iniquity is really the tendency to sin, which has really come down through the generations. And so Daniel did that, Nehemiah did that, the two that come to my mind right away. And when God answers that prayer, then that generational curse, if you will, is broken, and then you're set free. So that's one of the powerful things that we use in our process as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have a prayer, that we give to the couples to kind of follow through that will help break off those generational hindrances.
Mm-hmm. So do you take it to mean like when someone says, forgive the sins of my ancestors, do you take that to mean the iniquity that's been passed to them? That connection, or how do you?
Yeah. So it's really asking God to break that iniquity from you onwards, so it doesn't go beyond you.
Mm-hmm.
And because you cannot go back and undo what was done previously.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, Lord, nobody has repented for this iniquity, this transgression up to this point.
Okay.
And so I'm going to stand in the gap, and I'm going to ask you, with a heart of repentance, that you forgive, who are in my ancestral line, brought this down. And so,
it can be. I was going to give some examples like anger, and even
addiction,
even some diseases like diabetes, heart disease. We sometimes say, "Oh yeah, it was run through our family." It doesn't have to. You can break it off.
You can make it run out of your family.
So if people listen to our conversation and let's just imagine they forget most of what we just said, what's the one thing you would really want them to hold on to? What one gem?
Yeah. With regards to a marriage, one thing I would tell couples is your spouse needs to know they're the number one person in your life. They need to feel special, that like the vows that we make, faithful to you and you alone. And if we treat them that way, I think everything else will fall into place. You know, you can go through disagreements, whatever it is, but you know, if you show the love to them and let them know that they are number one, no matter what, then comes the children. Of course, God first, and then your husband. And you know, if you have that alignment, I think that's what I want people to remember.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
One thing from my perspective is forgive quickly.
Mhm.
Well, forgive, first of all, and
Mhm.
forgive quickly,
Yes.
because there's a lot of damage that you can do to yourself, and you can keep yourself from going to that next level if you nurse grudges.
Mhm.
It'll pull you down,
Yes.
faster than anything else that I know of in the spirit realm. And
Mhm.
so ask God for the grace to do that, and then exercise your will, because forgiveness is always a choice. It's a decision that we make. And
Right.
so choose to forgive quickly.
Wow. That's great. Okay. So we have come to the close of our interview session together. It's been wonderful. So I would like you to take the opportunity to let my guests know how they can engage with you, stay in touch with you, get mentoring from you, or anything else you'd like them to know about how they can stay in touch.
Well, the simplest way to do it is to go to our website, which is the SAMS, just THESAMS.ca, with the SAMS from Canada. And so it's easy to remember that way. And on the website, we have a free resource you can download. You can actually book right into our calendar. We have our calendar open there. If you need some help with your marriage, especially if you're at the point of thinking divorce, then hold that thought for a while until you talk to us. Get on our calendar. We'll meet with you. It's a free consultation. We'll do a deep dive into your marriage and give you some recommendations, and also what it would take on your part and our part if you would like to get our mentorship to go from a possible breakdown to a place of breakthrough.
Oh, that's wonderful. Any final words from you, Soulajana?
Yeah, don't give up on your marriage. There's help out there. And if it's not us, reach out to someone, in your church or in your, friend circle, and get the help that you need. And, if you believe God brought you together, if you do your best, He will help you restore your marriage. So, there is hope for you. And there is help out there for you. So
yeah, and if you don't need a mentorship at this point, you can get a hold of our book called The Unbreakable Marriage. It has a picture of a hammer trying to smash an egg with the hammerhead being broken.
That's great. That's great
It's
image.
available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or just go to your local bookstore and ask them to get it for you, and they will.
That is wonderful. I got to tell you, it has been a complete delight chatting with you. I wish I had more time. You're a delightful couple. I love what you're sharing, and I just pray that God continues to bless you and help you as you continue to help other people. So again, thanks so much for being on my show.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course.